Alice Miller, born in 1923 and passed away in 2010, was a renowned psychologist and author, primarily known for her research on the impact of childhood abuse and trauma. She gained international recognition for her insights into how early emotional and physical abuse shapes a person's psychological development and continues to affect them in adulthood. Her work is often linked to humanistic psychology and psychoanalysis, particularly Freud's theories of repression, but Miller criticized many of Freud's views, especially regarding the treatment of childhood trauma. The drama of the gifted child. The Search for the True Self, published in 1979, is arguably Alice Miller's most famous work. In this book, she discusses how childhood abuse, whether emotional, physical, or through neglect, can have a profound impact on a child's sense of self and their adult identity. The book challenges traditional psychological theories that often overlook or minimize the impact of early emotional trauma. Gifted child concept. Miller coined the term gifted child to describe children who excel at fulfilling the emotional needs and expectations of their parents at the expense of their own emotional development. These children often suppress their authentic feelings and needs in order to gain parental approval, leading to an inauthentic adult self. Repression and false self. According to Miller, children subjected to abuse or neglect create a false self to survive in their environment. They repress their genuine emotions, needs, and desires in order to receive love or attention. This leads to significant emotional issues in adulthood, such as depression, anxiety, or difficulties in relationships. True self. Miller emphasizes that adults who have been abused as children must rediscover and reconnect with their true self by confronting and processing their childhood trauma. Only by acknowledging their pain and the ways in which they have repressed their feelings can they begin to heal. For Your Own Good, Hidden Cruelty in Child Rearing and the Roots of Violence, 1980. In this book, Miller critiques traditional child-rearing practices and societal norms that often justify cruelty and neglect in the name of discipline or good parenting. She explores the ways in which society perpetuates violence and emotional repression, especially in the context of parenting. Cruelty in parenting. Miller examines how well-meaning but misguided parents can inflict lasting emotional damage on their children by adhering to outdated or authoritarian ideas about discipline. She argues that actions like corporal punishment, emotional neglect, or forcing children to suppress their feelings are forms of cruelty that harm their emotional development. Societal impact. Miller argues that these harmful practices not only affect individual children, but also contribute to a society that perpetuates violence. She explores how emotional repression leads to aggression, violence, and destructive behavior in adulthood. Breaking the cycle. Miller calls for a shift in how society views child rearing, advocating for a more compassionate and empathetic approach that acknowledges the emotional needs of children. The Body Never Lies: The Lingering Effects of Cruel Parenting, 2005. In this later work, Miller delves deeper into the connection between emotional trauma and the body, discussing how the body holds the memories of past abuse and emotional pain. She emphasizes that physical symptoms, illnesses, or chronic conditions in adulthood often stem from repressed childhood trauma. The body as a messenger. Miller argues that the body acts as a messenger of past trauma, manifesting symptoms that reflect unresolved emotional pain. Chronic physical ailments, for example, can be linked to unresolved psychological issues from childhood, such as emotional neglect, abuse, or repression. Mind-body connection. The book explores the idea that trauma is not only psychological but also physiological. Repressed emotions often surface in the body as physical symptoms, which is why traditional psychotherapy focusing solely on the mind may not be enough for complete healing. Healing process. Miller discusses how recognizing the connection between mind and body is critical in the healing process. She encourages individuals to listen to their bodies and explore their emotional pain through body-focused therapies or somatic techniques, as well as traditional psychotherapy. One of Alice Miller's most significant contributions to psychology is her emphasis on the long-lasting effects of childhood trauma, particularly emotional abuse and neglect. She believed that many adults are unable to connect with their true emotions because they have repressed their feelings in response to early mistreatment. The concept of repression. According to Miller, when children experience trauma, they often repress their feelings and memories to survive. However, these repressed emotions continue to affect them throughout their lives, manifesting in psychological issues like depression, anxiety, or relationship problems. In her work, Miller developed the idea of the false self, the persona that children develop to cope with abusive or emotionally neglectful environments. In order to gain affection or avoid punishment, the child learns to suppress their authentic feelings, creating a version of themselves that fits their parents' needs. For healing to take place, Miller believed that adults must reconnect with their true self, the authentic person they were before the trauma. This process involves confronting the pain of their past, acknowledging their emotions, and rejecting the false self that they had created to survive. Miller was critical of societal and cultural norms that perpetuate emotional repression and child abuse. She believed that traditional methods of parenting often involve cruelty disguised as discipline, and these practices contribute to widespread emotional suffering in adulthood. Cultural blindness to abuse. Miller argued that many forms of emotional abuse, such as forcing children to suppress their emotions, corporal punishment, and neglect, are normalized in society. This cultural acceptance of abusive practices creates a cycle of trauma that is passed down from generation to generation. For Miller, the process of healing from childhood trauma involves facing repressed memories and emotions, which can be incredibly painful. This process requires courage, self-compassion, and support. Miller encouraged individuals to seek therapy that acknowledges the emotional and bodily effects of trauma and to take active steps to reconnect with their true selves. Therapeutic approach. Miller emphasized the importance of a therapeutic environment that allows clients to safely explore their childhood memories and emotions without judgment. She also advocated for therapists to be aware of their own emotional biases when working with clients who have experienced childhood trauma.
Check one, check two. Check.
Alice Miller's work has had a profound impact on the fields of psychology and child development. Her focus on childhood trauma and the long-term effects of emotional abuse helped shape a more compassionate understanding of mental health, particularly in the areas of trauma-informed care and therapy. She has inspired countless therapists, psychologists, and individuals to explore their childhoods and work through the painful emotional wounds of the past.